Welcome to the moon of Xanathos and the home of the Blood Sands, a radioactive desert filled with weird and bizarre creatures and many rival factions. At least that's the premise of Denizens of the Blood Sands from RPG Ramblings, and I'll be sharing my review of this space fantasy bestiary right after this. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. All throughout March, it is Old School Renaissance Month here at the Gaming Gang, and yes, I understand if you follow the Gaming Gang, you already know that we cover a lot of OSR releases around these here parts. But this month, we're actually going to lean even heavier into the Old School Renaissance. And keeping with that theme, today I am going to be sharing my review of Denizens of the Blood Sands from RPG Ramblings. This is written by Zach Goins with artwork provided by Matthew Sargent. This 52-page bestiary is available as a hardcover with PDF for $35. If you want to grab just the PDF, normally it's $8, but there is the GM Day sale currently going on over at DriveThruRPG, so you can get this for $6 as I record this. There is also supposed to be a print-on-demand softcover zine. I'm not sure how you can go about getting it, but I do know it exists because as we swing on over to the other camera, that's what you're going to be taking a look at right now, the softcover zine. I looked on DriveThruRPG. I also looked on the RPG Ramblings website. Didn't find it anywhere. But obviously it exists because we're looking right at it. A couple of things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, the fine folks over at RPG Ramblings were kind enough to provide me with this review copy. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to take a look at each and every page of this space fantasy bestiary, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside. First off, let's talk about production quality. Actually, very nice. The cardstock cover, very nicely done. Paper inside, decent paperweight, especially for a zine. So I was very impressed by that. Nicely done. So this is a space fantasy bestiary. It is specifically indicated it's designed for old school essentials, but I'll tell you what, you can really utilize any of these entries with just about every retro clone or original game out there. And the reason behind that is because in the stat blocks, we not only have descending armor class, we have ascending armor class, and we also have THAC0. We have to hit armor class 0 entries for all of these creatures. I thought that was really a nice extra wrinkle to this bestiary because you can use this with a ton of different games out there. So just because you see OSC on the cover doesn't mean that's all you could ever use this with. And the inclusion of THAC0 actually expands its versatility even more. So we have 32 entries, 40 stat blocks, around 40 stat blocks off the top of my head. And I got to say, there are some really wild creatures in here. This bestiary, far more hits than misses. Not everything is going to be a home run, but that's normally the case with just about any bestiary. Of course, this is probably going to fit in far better with the kind of like space fantasy sort of adventures you might have with like Dungeon Crawl Classics, The Purple Planet, or if you're looking at Mutant Crawl Classics. But you could also bust this out with Gamma World, earlier editions of Gamma World, Mutant Future, all those sorts of gonzo post-apocalyptic role-playing games would fit in very, very nicely with this bestiary. Now, something else I really like about this is that we get to learn a lot more about the Blood Sands by way of these entries. So honestly, I'd love to see a setting book for the Blood Sands. I don't think there's one available. Maybe there's one that's on the horizon. Maybe it's on a back burner somewhere with the folks over at RPG Ramblings. But I just got to say, I would be really interested in exploring this setting a lot further. For each of these entries, you're going to get a bit of information about them. So these are the Ruby Town Salvagers. You're going to get your stat block, and then you're going to get information about their combat abilities, things that make them unique. And then normally with the entries, you'll get something extra. So with these salvagers, we get points of interest in Ruby Town. Then we also have Slicer Loot. So it's a D10 random table here. So for the most part, a lot of these entries are going to give you more than just, okay, here's a brief description, stat block, what they do in combat. There's other cool OSR tidbits that are added to the proceedings for many of these. I like that a ton. We'll also find some important NPCs as far as the Blood Sands go within these entries. That's why there are 32 entries, but there are around 40 stat blocks. So I thought that was a nice touch too. A lot of fun to be had with these various different creatures. We also get some tables about encounters depending on terrain or locale. So here we've got ruins. We also have the wasteland. And then we get using the SRD monsters. So we've got a D100 table here with 3 different columns for you to change up just bog standard monsters from the OSR and turn them into something different for the Blood Sands. Nice little addition to the zine here. Then we got a table of mutations, a little bit of artwork. Speaking of the artwork, I like the artwork quite a bit. Some of the images I would have liked to have seen a little bit bigger, but then again, you know, we are talking about a zine. So there is a peek inside Denizens of the Blood Sands from RPG Ramblings. Let's swing on over to the other camera so I can share some final thoughts as well as my review score. I gotta say, this is a fun bestiary. Granted, it's 52 pages, so it doesn't wear out its welcome, that's for certain. And I also got to point out that I would really like to see a setting book for the Blood Sands, because just from what's included in this bestiary, kind of filling in some of the blanks about the Blood Sands, sounds like it'd be a pretty cool setting to unleash your player characters on, or maybe unleash onto your players. All in all, very nicely done. Production quality is very, very good, especially for a zine. Sometimes zines are pretty flimsy. That's not really the case here. I will say, as far as a hardcover for $35, I think that's a bit pricey, especially since we do see the same kind of page count from, say, Exalted Funeral for about $20 for hardcovers, especially when we're talking about the Old School Essentials Adventures from Necrotic Gnome. But as a PDF right now for $6, this is a must-have. Really is. At $6 for a PDF, even at $8 for the PDF, the regular price. Highly, highly recommend Denizens of the Blood Sands. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I'm giving this space bestiary an 8.5 out of 10. I enjoyed the hell out of reading this, and I would love to explore the Blood Sands even further. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the Gaming Gang and would like to support the outlet, you can do so in a few ways. First, by utilizing our affiliate links to the One Bookshelf sites, such as DriveThruRPG. To do so, simply visit thegaminggang.com, click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. All those commissions really do add up, help keep thegaminggang.com around. You can also make a one-time donation by way of PayPal, or even become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find links to that down in the show notes. Also in the show notes, you'll find an invite link to our Discord server. Absolutely free to sign up. Be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. If you enjoyed the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. And if you ring the bell, be sure you select all notifications, because that way you'll learn whenever I share a video such as this review. But you'll also be notified when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central, as I bring you the latest in tabletop role-playing game news of the day and a whole lot more. And when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit the aforementioned thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.